Hi folks, this is Jake from Tier 3 Tactical. Today we're going to be talking about an article I wrote entitled 5 Key Predictors of Success in Marine Corps Sniper School. This was an interesting article to write based on some very interesting research by a Marine Corps captain. Statistically, 55% of very good Marines that we send to Marine Corps Scout Sniper School fail. So this prompted this captain to do a little bit of research and determine why that is the case. And he determined that there are 5 predictors of success in the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School, and that's what we're going to cover in this video today. Before we get too far into this research, we're going to talk about a few misconceptions about Scout Snipers. This comes from Hollywood, this comes from movies, and a lot of folks just really don't know what they do. I have a background in Marine Corps infantry operations. I was a qualified infantry officer, and I have attended Marine Corps Scout Sniper Platoon Commander course, so I have some idea how Marine snipers are trained, what they do, and how they are used operationally. Let's talk about the basics of sniping. Each unit in the Marine Corps kind of has a different way of using them. There are 3 primary types of units in the Marine Corps that will have Marine Corps Scout Snipers. There are infantry battalions, the reconnaissance battalions, and then Marine Special Operations Raider battalions. And each of them do things a little differently. In an infantry battalion, snipers are in their own platoon, and they are the battalion commander's eyes and ears in order to answer questions in the battalion's battle space. And they do near reconnaissance in the immediate vicinity around that unit's area of operations. And reconnaissance battalions, they go a little bit further, and they are integrated into each reconnaissance team. A recon battalion answers a division commander or a MEF commander's intelligence requirements, and they also provide lethal fires on targets of opportunity. Marine Raiders also use them in a similar manner to reconnaissance battalion. They do a little bit further reconnaissance that's further afield, but they are integrated into teams rather working as one particular platoon. Primarily, snipers are tasked with 2 types of missions. They gather intelligence, that's a primary goal, and then the secondary goal is to provide lethal fires on targets of opportunity. An example of their primary goal might be something like setting up a firing position, observing a mountain pass to see if elements of the enemy are using a certain route to flank friendly forces. And then if they are targets of opportunity in that area, they might decide to engage those targets with lethal precision fires. Another example might be setting up an urban hide in advance of a major assault. That's something you would see in what we did in Iraq was very common. They would take a building, set up a firing position, observe the enemy troops to see what they were doing there. It goes without saying that sniper missions are incredibly difficult to pull off. You are working in small teams behind enemy lines on your own effectively for long duration. So the Marine Corps only trains its best Marines to be Scout Snipers, and they have a very high bar just to get accepted to a Scout Sniper unit or to go to the school. The statistics show that 55% of Marines that go to the formal course, the Scout Sniper course, are going to fail. And this caused Captain Gregory Johnell to write this research thesis. This is all going to be linked in the description below the article, and then his research thesis as well. And he wrote this at Naval Postgraduate School. So let's look at what he did. Captain Johnell sent out some questionnaires that kind of measured psychological traits, and also just got some basic biographical data, where they're from, how old they are, previous experience, what their MOS training had been. And he examined several tangible qualities such as fitness scores, ASVAB scores, where they enlisted, shooting scores, all that kind of stuff, as well as those psychological traits. And specifically, he looked at the trait of grit, which is, your ability to stick to a task that may take a lot of work or it may not be immediately accomplishable. So working towards something for a long period of time. Without further ado, let's get into the 5 predictors that were most predictive of successful completion of Marine Corps Scout Sniper School. And I'll throw a graphic up here on the screen that kind of shows about how predictive they were But the highlights are coming from a reconnaissance battalion, had 11% higher probability. If you've got less than 2 years time in service, you've got 16% lower probability of graduation. And if you previously dropped from the course, you actually have an 18% higher probability of graduation. If your proficiency rating is greater than 4.4, 16% higher probability of graduation. And if you have an increase in grit score, 1/10 of a point equals 60% higher probability of graduation. Let's discuss why this might have turned out this way. As you can see, some of these findings aren't intuitive. The first one we talked about, coming from reconnaissance battalion, that's kind of easy. That's a very difficult unit to get into. That's a long pipeline, and you have to be very mentally and physically tough just to get into there. And so anyone that can make that difficult training pipeline is already going to have many of the qualities needed to successfully graduate from Scout Sniper School. So that makes sense. Now, being a very young Marine, less than 2 years time in service, is going to lower your probability of graduation. And that makes sense. You don't have probably the amount of training or experience in your job field to successfully graduate. Or if you do, it's going to be much harder. Next, we're looking at if you've previously dropped from the course, you actually have a better chance of graduating by 18%. Now, that makes sense because you know more or less what you're going to be tested on, so you can specifically train for those scenarios. So that makes a lot of sense to me. And also, you're probably actually looking at somebody who is willing to keep trying. So that's kind of another measure of grit. The funniest one to me was a proficiency rating greater than 4.4. They actually found a conduct rating lower than 4.4 increased your probability of graduation. So proficiency is how good you are at your job, and conduct is basically how likable you are. So as long as you were good at your job, you had a better chance of graduating. But if you were not well liked or you didn't get along with folks, you actually also had a better chance of graduating. So I found that slightly amusing. And obviously the big takeaway here is if you increase your grit, or if your personality is such that you will work for a long time towards a goal, you've got a much higher chance of graduating. That's a 60% higher probability of graduation. And that's probably for a couple reasons. One, you're probably going to do some research on what you need to do to pass the course, and you're probably going to work as long as you can to guarantee that you will have the best chance of passing that course. So that isn't really a big surprise to me. Here are my recommendations for Scout Sniper hopefuls. First and foremost, you need to join the Marine Corps, and you need to join as a scout or as a infantry contract. And you're going to have to be enlisted. There are very few officers that have gone through the full Scout Sniper school. It does happen, but it doesn't matter anyway. Those officers are generally not going to be employed as actual Scout Snipers. They're in charge of those units, so they're not going to be laying on a gun a lot of the time. So enlist, go the infantry route, and master your craft. You need to learn the basics of infantry. You need to be in great shape, and you need to be tough. Those things are going to carry through regardless of your goals in the Marine Corps. Secondly, you need to show up in the right shape. A big chunk of people that fall out of this course are not good enough shape. If you can barely get a first-class PFT, you're probably not going to make it. It's very hard. So you need to be in excellent shape. Obviously, we've got a lot of articles on the website to help you out there, but the kind of shape you need to be in is not necessarily super strong and really muscular. That's always nice, but you need to be able to ruck, you need to be able to run, and you need to be able to produce a high work output in less than optimal conditions. Cold, starving, and then ambiguous situations. That's what you need to be successful. Doesn't matter if you can squat 400 or deadlift 500 pounds or whatever. If you can't do any of those things, you won't make it. And lastly, stick to it. And like we saw, having previously failed that school was a very good predictor of being able to pass it. So stick with it. If you fail, come back and do better. So these are my top tips. I hope you liked the article. Make sure you click below, check out the full article in the description below. And as always, we're going to be doing more of these videos. So like and subscribe and share it with somebody who might be interested in this or might just think this is a cool video. Thanks.